Hello, everyone. This is Joann Spotted Bear. I am live. I want to say hello to everybody out there and then start inviting some friends, give everybody a chance to get caught up here and let everybody know what's going on here. Here we go. Relatives, I want to first say thank you all for viewing all the videos that are going on and help making this video go viral. I want to explain about what took place in Washington, D.C. and in New York and what I'm doing today. Okay, so a lot of the problems that had taken place started on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in a place called Pork Pine, South Dakota. They built a Sundance ground that was called Thunder Valley. The Pine Ridge Indian Reservation did not approve Thunder Valley on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And then what took place is Thunder Valley was used in Standing Rock on the cleanup. And I was asked to go to Standing Rock by one of my aunties. And so I went to Standing Rock. The reality of Standing Rock was I did not want to go. And I was working and I had a home. And I was only supposed to be gone 1 week to explain all these laws in 1 week to everybody in Standing Rock. Then I was going to leave. Well, it turned out that this journey had become a part of my life where I lost my home and I dedicated my life to the people so the people can live in hopes the water will continue on to flow for the next 7 generations. So we went to Washington where I bought treaties. I bought 3 treaties in Washington, D.C. We bought this 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty, which is on the Chronicle list of international treaties. We bought the 1868 Treaty. We bought the Peace and Friendship Treaty. And then they threw the 1851 Treaty and by a 20 by 20 foot poster, and they threw that in for free in Washington at the Library of Congress. And then there was the march in Washington, and that's where, while I was in Washington in January to February, going into March, I learned that the district court Judge James Ballenberg, I believe is his name, he was having court at the district court where Standing Rock and Cheyenne Eagle Butte met with the Department of Justice in the U.S., DAPL, and all of them. And I learned that one judge had made a decision on the 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty. There was no jury, there was no jury, and there was no 3 judges. There was only one judge making an international decision on one treaty. I also learned that while in the district court, nowhere in the Constitution does it say lower courts have jurisdiction over international treaties. So I went to the Supreme Court where I learned that there is no filings at all from the Supreme Court concerning the Dakota Access Pipeline or the Keystone XL pipeline. And so I grabbed some paperwork and we started writing a document. And this journey took me from Washington back towards Standing Rock, from Standing Rock to Albuquerque, New Mexico, Albuquerque to LA, back towards Reno, Nevada, Reno, back to Standing Rock, back towards Washington, and back into New York. One of the goals in Washington, D.C. is to get as many water protectors to go to New York to the United Nations. And first it was Mike Gams and Vanessa, aka Susie, the one who got shot in the eye. And it was only supposed to be 3 of us, and it turned out to be 50. And next thing you know, there was 100 water protectors who was there. We made it a effort to, with Mike and Susie's help and the water protectors, to bring water protectors back to New York for the Indigenous Permanent Forum, where we met with some ECOSOC members, and we were able to get some water protectors into the United Nations, where many a times I felt discouraged. I felt discouraged because the 1933 bankruptcy of the United States was never ratified, dialogued, or notified by nobody. And I even got discouraged with the group that I was with, because I wanted them to put a stop to the UN, not keep using the UN as revolving doors to express their problems, because they've heard this problem for 83 years. And so I had to interrupt, and I had to stand up, and I had to do whatever it is I had to do, even if it meant getting us kicked out of the UN or even possibly going to jail. The point is, the United States was going to listen to us no matter what, and I wasn't going to take no for an answer. So we waited there for a whole week, and that day that I spoke, we were going to leave on Wednesday at noon, and we decided that we wanted to stay. And just by the grace of God, somehow, some way, they called, and that's where you see the video of when I spoke about the 1933 bankruptcy. Many of you want to know about that 1933 bankruptcy and how it affects the indigenous peoples. And here's the real deal. The United States, when they went bankrupt in 1933 under 28 U.S.C. 3002, they became a for-profit corporation. And they came up with a charter number. Out of 564 federal recognized tribes, none of us have agreed from North or South America, let alone North and South America or the world, have agreed for the United States to do business on our land. What happened is, because of the genocide and poverty and the blood libel, which means killing of people, mass people, to claim a land that doesn't belong to you is also under land theft. So it was very important that we put a stop to this 1933 bankruptcy. In doing so, we had to speak up, and in the Lakota way, we're supposed to believe in the Chinupa, we're supposed to believe in our prayers, we're supposed to do what we can for our people. And so I want to let everybody know that I want to step back a few months. Back in August 2016, I told David Archambault that the United States is bankrupt, and that I had Standing Rock's IRS papers. And I knew for a fact that Standing Rock owed the IRS over $1 million. Dave Archambault lied to me and told me, no, we don't owe him no money. And I said, after you get all these donations, you won't be owing anybody money, because you'll have money. And these are the type of games that were being played on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, where they would create a thing like selling the Black Hills or selling Wounded Knee, and they'd get everybody to donate, and then the money would disappear. Same thing with Standing Rock. That happened in Standing Rock. No one really knows where the money is, but a lot of us, we got the finance papers and the documents, and we're going through with it. But if you really look at it from another point of view, under 28 U.S.C., the United States is declared a corporation or an agency. Standing Rock Indian Reservation offices, where Dave Archambault works, is an agency. United States Corporation is a corporation. In 1933, these offices declared bankruptcy. They never ratified our dialogue with the Fublets. So the treaties, when the treaty, you look at the treaty is written with the Fublets. It never was written with Standard Rock Agency or the United States Agency. It was written people to people. Them were the ones the treaty was signed. They're non-negotiable documents. You can't go back and fix them because the people who wrote them are dead. And they're in the Constitution. There's two Constitution. The first one is 1787, which belonged to the people. The second one is 1871, which is a corporation constitution. During the making of the 1781 Constitution, nobody was being told that the treaties would be the law of the land, but they did write them into the constitutions. So we have two constitutions. Now we go in and we look at the two court cases, Katz versus the United States, Bond versus the U.S. Those two court cases describe that United States is not a country, that the land belongs to the Native American Indians. The treaty itself is not a title or a allodial title or a deed. It's not a bill of sales. It's a safe passage only. And so what happened is when the United States failed to ratify a dialogue, they gave up their, or when they went bankrupt in 1933, they gave up their sovereignty and became insolvent. And so they were supposed to always tell the truth with us, but they haven't. So today what we're doing is by having the United Nations acknowledge the 1933 bankruptcy in the United Nations, they verified it themselves without truly knowing how to work with the indigenous people by releasing the third letter stating that the United States 1933 bankruptcy has to ratify a dialogue with the Great Sioux Nation. Many of us, Lakota, Nakota, Dakotas, are known as Sioux. Many tribes across the land are known as Sioux due to the fact Sioux meant enemy. We are not the enemy. We are not your enemy. Matter of fact, we want to be have good relations. We want to have good friendship, but we can't have good friendship when the government is lying. So as many of you see, Donald Trump today has created many lies across the country, even within his own staff, and firing people left and right. And you're learning as you're going on, but these treaties, the chronicle list of international treaties, they go worldwide, all the way around the world. The bankruptcy, I learned about it in 2013, and I learned it from David Buse. He's one of my mentors. And I also learned how to write laws through David. It was a big struggle. It's still a struggle. And I learned to fight court cases. I always say the Bureau of Indian Affairs is my best friend because they taught me how to practice law on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And then I learned to take it to Reno, Nevada, Fallon, Nevada, and Pyramid Lake, Nevada. And also won one federal court case without ever practicing the British Accredited Registry bar card, which is also known as the bar card. We learned about the Strawman Act and dual citizenship. We learned that the 1924 Indian Reorganization Act was null and void after the 1933 bankruptcy, but they continued to push these forward as if they were moving into the Dawes Act. The Dawes Act is an act to get rid of all the natives across the country. It was once said to our ancestors that so long as all the Native American Indians are dead, that they can claim this land as America and do whatever they wanted here. Many people live in cities and they raised the price so high in the cities that a lot of civilians who are in the cities can't get out of the city and to find another place to live, such as Flint. It's very important that we talk about Flint and Flint, Michigan, because the water in the city of Flint is contaminated, and from what I understand, the mouth of the big river in Michigan is where the oil is coming through, and that oil has somehow contaminated Chicago. So Chicago is also contaminated. And we have contamination water in New York. We have contaminated water in Farmington, New Mexico, where I helped a friend of mine become an advocate, and they won a court case in Farmington, New Mexico for, I believe it was $3 million. They won the court case against AV Water in Farmington, New Mexico. AV Water, their story is, was asked, where does the contaminated water go? They said, we take it out of the pipes and we throw it back onto the land, and it sinks into the land and it goes into the aquifers, and then they regenerate it back through the pipes. So the problem really never gets solved. Through the pipes, when oil runs through the pipes, okay, this is very, very important. When oil runs through the pipes, when it first comes out of the ground, it's called, first the oil people, they say it's called bitumen, are known as bitumen, where nothing survives within a 2-mile radius. And when the pipes, when the oil comes up, they mix it with sand and with dirt and rock, like a peanut butter, a thick peanut butter, and then they run it through the pipes, and the name changes towards bitumen. Bitumen, once the pipe breaks, that sand that's hitting the pipes like that, once it thins out and it breaks into the water, it then becomes benzene. Benzene is a type of chemical. You can't see it, you can't smell it, or you can't taste it, and it gets into the food supply. And into the food supply, that's where it causes bone marrow, birth defects, and death. And so I had to learn all these stuff, like one right after another, and the picture's a lot bigger than what I'm telling you. Matter of fact, there's pictures on the internet where even the deer had massive cancer all around its neck and its head and its ears. Fish were having cancer sores, and it looked really bad. And so this is the reason I call it the new Wounded Knee. No one deserves to die behind black ink on white paper. No one deserves to die behind a bankrupt corporation. Everybody deserves to live, and so does the future. So by taking this to the United Nations, and they acknowledged the 1933 bankruptcy, now we're ready for the next 2 steps. The second 2 steps are to file in the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., where I expect for Washington, D.C. to turn us down due to the fact that United States is bankrupt. No employee is going to tell about their boss being bankrupt. After all, they're used to this country being called the United States of America, and that this is their country, but it is not their country. As a matter of fact, the red, white, and blue flag was taken at the Little Bighorn, which once used to be called Greasy Grass. That's where the Lakota, Nakota, Dakota, Cheyenne people took the flag, killed Custer, and took the flag away from him. So technically, the flag belongs to us. That's why I had that reduplicated, so that people would know we own the flag. It's our flag. It's our ancestors. They're the ones who fought and died for that flag. And then the treaties were written. So what I'm trying to tell you, relatives, is the not only the red, white, and blue flag in the bankruptcy, and the laws. Now we're getting into international laws because a judge committed treason of treaty in lower courts. This is very, very serious. And I do need everybody from East Coast to West Coast to join us at the, not only in Washington to occupy Washington, but to occupy New York, and to see it to it, help me see to it that we fly the flag of the Little Bighorn at the United Nations level. I also would like people to please help to see to it that our filings are in the Supreme Court and at the Hague. I just want the United States government to know that I've already sent documents to the Hague. They've been downloaded, and there's a group that's reading them, as well as a group of lawyers. So I know that Donald Trump is making his way to the Hague on the 24th, and we're not going to allow this mind game to continue on. This is our land, and even under Public Law 97 through 280, Congress declared the Bible as the Book of Truth. And in the Book of Truth, it states that ninth commandment reads, "Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor." We are the owners of the land, and if you believe in God, in Jesus' name, amen, you will respect the fact that this is our land. As for the 3 individuals who got fired in Washington, D.C., I'm sorry that that happened to you. However, it would be a good idea to work with you guys and to really get down to the bottom of this, because we know there's treason of treaties that started in Washington, D.C. We know there's high levels of embezzlement and fraud, double dipping. We know that courts are not to be using people's names down on Brad Street and then charging them for fines, and this is where double dipping comes in. And we also know that courts are individually owned in every town, every city across this land, and been manipulating our people. This is going to have to stop. I've been to many cities across this country, and I see many homes that are condemned and no one's living in them. There's plenty of good wood to remodel homes, and the old things, they could be torn down and thrown away. And so what am I saying to the people? I'm saying that there's a chance for the middle class and lower class to become better people. And as for the 5% rich, there'll be no more 8th grade dropout to supersede the government. And I want everybody else to know that inside of the United Nations, world banks are there. In the 1933 bankruptcy, Roosevelt fired Congress, and he fired himself, and they handed everything to the UN and to world banks. So if you watch the video that I put on there, I strongly address that the world banks, why didn't they tell us about the 1933 bankruptcy? And they told me that they didn't tell me because they didn't know. And it's hard to believe that, because they deal with land. Again, that leads back to treaties. The Department of Interior, it leads to Bureau of Land Management, it goes back to the federal government, it goes to the United Nations, and it goes into the world banks. And for the use of the land, they were never supposed to be stealing from the indigenous people. Why do I do what I do? I do it so it's a learning experience for everybody. I want you all to be successful. I want you all to be to live again, our children to live. And what do we need to do? We need to come together. I was told that I need to make a smaller video, but sometimes it's the bigger videos that help you to understand, and it takes then I can break it down into a smaller video, because obviously when we get back to the UN or in court, We have to have our ducks in a row. So what I have is, there's 2 documents in South Dakota. One is 344U, and there's another one, 344N. These 2 documents are assigned to the Lakota Nation, and in the Lakota Nation, there never should have been a 344N. We all go 344U, and then it goes like 25530 for myself, and that's how you could describe our land, our name, and where we come from. It describes our, it's attached to our tribal IDs, it's attached to our social security numbers, it's attached to our birth certificates, it's attached to our driver's license, it's attached to our passports. And so the more IDs that Native Indians have, the higher that their, like kind of saying the money on their head is. In other words, some things just never change. A long time ago, they used to scalp Indians for their hair or their head, and they cash them in, and now they're cashing in our U numbers. And so it's quite an honor to have a lot of IDs and know that I'm worth something to someone. But the reality is I want our people to live. I want our people to be confident and to learn, all of you, and to keep sharing these videos. Don't stop sharing the videos, people. Keep them going. And let's do this together. There's got to be an answer for us. And this time, when we go to Washington, we're not going to march around the White House. Our problem is not the White House. Our problem is the United States Capitol. That's where our problem is. Occupy the Capitol. Occupy United Nations. We want the truth. We don't have to use guns or anything, just songs and prayers and truth and justice, and have the Supreme Court stand with us, not against us, and even the Hague and all the world leaders. I'm trying to do the best I can. Please learn about the 1933 bankruptcy. The United States is supposed to pay us in gold and silver. And I know for a fact that I put $1,960 trillion, but at the bottom of the document, if you look at it, it says I can change anything that I want at any moment. So there's a lot of things that are being unsaid and done right now, and we need to take care of each other, and we need to help one another. If the government fails to ratify and dialogue the 1851 treaty, I'll go with treaties starting from 405 before Christ, and I will attach $1,960 trillion in gold and silver, and the United States will have to seize every single embassy around the world, because this is not a game to be played with. This is, matter of fact, we're talking about people's lives. We're talking about your life here. Our people deserve to live. We do not deserve to be taken for granted from nobody, no matter where they come from. And we got to stay strong. So with that being said, Aked Dokasha, I love you all, and I hope that you have paid attention. If you want to help, please donate to PayPal. I have only one PayPal account, and that is jspottedbear@yahoo.com at PayPal. Or those of you have any questions, such as the letter that was turned in to the United Nations, get a hold of me. We'll do a live feed, and we'll talk. I want to make it very clear that Dallas and Tom Goldtooth are not to be trusted, and they work with David Archambault. Matter of fact, they're related. And Thunder Valley was used as a cleanup crew in Standing Rock. Thunder Valley, there was a death out there. Jerome LeBeau was a Sundance leader, and they told on him. Tom Little Bull told on on Jerome LeBeau from Thunder Valley, and Tom Littlebull was murdered. And this was a murder that was never investigated, even to this day. And so that's very important. Another thing that's important is at the Indigenous Permanent Forum, we know that Orville Looking Horse goes to the Indigenous Permanent Forum every year in New York. And this year he didn't show up, nor did he support the Indigenous flood. And I kind of wonder why he didn't do that. He's a spiritual leader. He's supposed to be there for his people. And he was in Standing Rock, so why wasn't he there for us? So I feel pretty disappointed about that too. Kind of makes me wonder what's going on here, what's really going on. And as for the Treaty Council at the United Nations, if you're going to talk about our treaties, at least let the Lakota, Nakota, Dakota, Cheyenne nations know that you're expressing, talking about our treaties. Matter of fact, we have a voice of our own and we can use it. We've been using it from Canada to Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and pretty much all over the world. So it's not like we can't speak for ourselves, but we do. So our treaty, if someone's playing with it and we find out about it, I promise you that I will be expressing that to the fullest. We will not tolerate a de facto government superseding our treaties, or misusing or abusing our land, our resources, so that just a few can get rich. There is no rich Indian until every single Indian is rich. And this is how it is going to be for our people. So please stay tuned. We are, like I said, we are going to Flint and we are going to Washington, and I am making my way back to the West, and I was even asked to go into Mexico. So there's a lot of people out there who want to know, and I'm anxious to tell every single one of them what's going on. So please join us. Stay tuned. Okay, Duksha. Later. Nope. It won't go off.